What? The bread and butter.
You lost me.
Ooh, that was good.
Alright. So,
Bread. It's pretty cool. It holds your sandwich together. Click. That didn't work. Alright, here we go.
My name is Ben Nemzer, and I'm a magician. One of my specialties is close-up magic, which is magic of ordinary objects, sticks of colors, books, rubber bands, and I do that all over New York City. I'm going to teach you some of the basics of magic that you guys can start performing right away. I'm going to show you how to take a bread roll and bounce it really high. Have a look. Now here's the secret behind the bouncing bread roll. For starters, there are actually 2 bread rolls, and you don't let anybody know that you have 2, and you want to try to find 2 that look pretty similar, although nobody will notice if they're slightly different, like these. And you leave one on the bread plate, and when no one's looking, you take another one and you sneak it into your lap. And I keep it right here on my left knee. Now what I do is, as I reach for the bread roll with my right hand, my left hand takes this one off my knee. Now it looks like this bread roll is bouncing, but what happens is as soon as I hear the impact of it hitting the floor, I take the other hand and I toss it up, just like that. And that's how you bounce a bread roll really high.
Alright, so that was for comedic sake. Yep, alright. And okay. Alright, so bread. It all started 30,000 years ago when a bunch of bored agrarian people said, I wonder what happens if we take water, this ground up cereal grains that we will now refer to as flour, and some salt, and then expose it to heat. And then you get the flatbread, which is nice and cool. Alright, and leavening started. That's where we get the other main type of breads. So a few examples there. Then you get into sort of the nitty-gritty of what kind of flour you use, leavening, stuff like that. Very complicated, very nice things. Alright. And so this is what I made. This is the flatbread. There's no real particular name for it. It's just a very generic flatbread. So it's really sort of an eyeball recipe. And just like that, a staple in the human diet was made. This next one's pictures. Yeah. So this is mixing the flour in the water, salt, letting the gluten form, spreading it out. Actually, you use a pan to cook it. Although you don't want to get the pan too hot, I put it on maximum heat for about 30 minutes, and the second I put that down, it started burning. So that's just 3 seconds of exposure right there. Black clothing, final product. Alright. James, it's yours.
Alright, so what can you do with bread, you ask? Well, it turns out this one is yours? Okay.
Alright, so what can you do with bread? Well, you can do a lot of things actually, since the times of the agrarians and 300,000 years ago. We not 30,000. Okay, bigger number. So we got a lot of things now. We got like scones, we got bagels, we got Twinkies. You guys like Twinkies? So, oh shit. After a few years, like thousands of years, we got one of the greatest things to ever come out of the human race. Does anyone have any guesses?
Sliced bread.
Yes. Sliced bread. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread because it is sliced bread. Some history. The U.S. led the innovation in the bread sector because we are the best in innovation. An unnamed bakery in Missouri in the early 1900s was the first to discover the wonders of an automated bread slicing machine. And the patent was later obtained by a smaller company at the time called Wonder Bread, which is now a major producer in the bread market. And I was actually going to bring some in, but I don't really like it, and Star Market didn't have any. So I now will show you something. Next slide, please. I will now demonstrate the greatest thing that ever came out of Boston, which is fluff. And what you can do is a fluff and sandwich. And if you could press the demo, I will demonstrate the powers of sandwiches.
There you go.
The Fluff Sandwich.
So artisan bread bakers, they are basically specialized bread makers. They don't usually use commercial yeast. They use wild yeast culture, which is, I would say, probably more like authentic yeast. It's basically not like mainstream. There are some yeast cultures that have been alive for up to 300 years, claiming Mr. Oren in Paris. And like as you know, they keep growing and then they have babies. And so yeah, there's some traditional places that use like the same yeast culture, saying like we have like the oldest bread and things such like that. Some of them use yeast from air, which use flour and water, and you just keep adding flour and water every day, and the yeast settles from the air into the mix, and eventually you can get enough yeast in order to make bread. And some use the yeast from brewing companies, because we all know that they use yeast to brew beer, so they'll take the yeast cultures from the brewing companies and use those. So I made basic bread, which is this right here. I actually thought it turned out pretty well. I wasn't expecting something that's good. I tried it last night. It was pretty good. So these are the ingredients that I use, which is water, active dry yeast, salt, sugar, flour, milk, and vegetable shortening. So these are the directions. I won't go into all of them, but you basically add the ingredients, take it out of the bowl, flour on the table, and you knead it for a while until it's like smooth and stretchy, and then you let it settle for an hour for the yeast to develop and gluten form. Next one. And then you punch it down, and the reason for punching it down is to have all the carbon dioxide leave, and it like kind of forces the carbon dioxide out. And you knead it for a little bit more, and then you let it settle for 30 more minutes, and then you bake 375. And well, you also score it, but my scores weren't great, as you can see. I tried scoring it across the top. That didn't work out too well. So this is like the dough.